UFC 298 gives us a stacked card in Anaheim, headlined by the former number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in Alexander Volkanovski, facing off against undefeated up-and-comer Ilia Topuria. Volkanovski has been the reigning 145-pound champion for the past 4 years, while Topuria is getting his first shot at gold in the UFC. Also on this card, we got Robert Whittaker against Paulo Costa, Ian Garry against Jeff Neal, and Henry Cejudo against Dvalishvili. This card is stacked from head to toe, and here in this video, we'll talk about what each fighter brings and who will come out on top. To start this off, we got Henry Cejudo versus Dvalishvili. Henry came out of retirement a couple months back to get what he left behind, his bantamweight strap. The former double champ retired on top and felt like he could come back to where he left off, facing Aljamain Sterling for the belt at the time. However, he came up short and looked like he was going back into retirement. Henry Cejudo is an Olympic gold medalist, former UFC flyweight champ, and former UFC bantamweight champ. From his background, he obviously wants to get this fight to the ground and control the fight there. Outside of that, he does have underrated striking, knocking out a couple guys that include his last 3 wins against TJ Dillashaw, Marlon Moraes, and Dominic Cruz. Although, Cejudo's going against the pace machine in Dvalishvili. Merab has stayed atop the rankings for a while now, and would have had a title shot if he wasn't best friends with Sterling. Dana White said it himself.
What?
Versus Aljo.
Oh yeah, you could have that fight tomorrow.
Merab has unworldly cardio, putting it on opponents when the bell sounds. We saw from his last fight against Petr Yan, shooting for 49 takedowns, which is the most in any UFC fight. Decent on the feet, compared with ridiculous pace in wrestling, there's a reason why he's been on the top of the division for so long. The way this fight plays out is a lot of crisp striking and feints from both fighters to set up takedowns. I think Merab puts unbearable pressure on Cejudo, and Cejudo won't be able to sustain it. I got Merab by decision. Now we got a fight that was supposed to take place 2 pay-per-views ago at UFC 296, and that's Jeff Neal versus Ian Garry. Ian Garry is one of the best strikers in the welterweight division, last scoring a win against Neil Magny. He's got that featherweight Conor McGregor style, very light on his feet, uses his kicks a lot, and is very smart with shot selection. His wrestling is subpar compared to the other fighters in his division, but his takedown defense is solid enough to keep the fight standing. Jeff Neal, however, would love to keep the fight standing, as he's only gotten 4 takedowns his entire UFC career. Neal is your typical gatekeeper of the welterweight division. Not too good to crack the top 5, but good enough to be used as a stepping stone for these young and up-and-comers. If this fight ends up a kickboxing match, then I see very few welterweight contenders being able to stand with Ian Garry, much less Jeff Neal. And as much as Ian Garry's been in the media, I think Garry gets the job done by knockout. In the co-main event, we got top 5 middleweights in Robert Whittaker against Paulo Costa. Robert Whittaker has forever kept his division on standby, beating every young guy that wants to come up the ranks, but can never beat the champ Israel Adesanya. It seemed as if he was the uncrowned champ in another lifetime that didn't include Adesanya. That changed though, as he got knocked out by Dricus du Plessis, the current middleweight champ. Whittaker is a great martial artist, being arguably the most complete fighter in the UFC. He can keep the fight on the feet, take you to the ground, keep you at a distance, or keep you in close. Whatever Whittaker wants to do, he'll find a way to do it. Then there's Paulo Costa, who hasn't fought since August of 2022. It seems as if there's always an excuse with Costa. With the Adesanya fight, he said he drank a whole bottle of wine before the fight.
Eu tomei vinho, muito vinho, uma garrafa, para tentar pagar, porque eu tomei.
With the Vettori fight, he couldn't make 185, so they had to fight at 205, and he still lost.
How is that even possible that, like, you know, we're supposed to fight at 185 and he comes in a week out, you come in a week out over 215 pounds.
Then with the Khamzat bout, he had to withdraw due to injury. Okay, that one may not be an excuse, but it's still something that has happened. To be honest, I won't believe this fight is happening until I see Costa walk into the cage. But if this fight does happen, let me give you a breakdown of him. He's a striker with the head of a brick and wants to stand and bang. He doesn't like to go on the ground, but he will if he has to, as he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Costa is a very aggressive fighter, and I don't see Whittaker falling into any of Costa's antics. I got Whittaker by decision. Finally, we have the main event for the featherweight strap between Alexander Volkanovski and Ilia Topuria. Starting with the champ, Volk's put together a resume that makes a debate for not only the greatest featherweight of all time, but the greatest fighter of all time. Dominated a stacked weight class, moved up to 155 and arguably won the first fight against Islam Makhachev, and been the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world at one point. He can stand and strike with the best of them, as seen against Max Holloway. He can also wrestle with anybody, as shown with Brian Ortega and Islam. This guy does it all. Volk likes to read his opponents a lot, throws a lot of feints, kicks him in the legs for the first couple rounds, but after those early rounds pass by, he turns into a monster, just absolutely dismantling his opponents. He did that to the Korean Zombie and Yair Rodriguez, finishing them in the 3rd round or later. Volk's very cerebral in his fights, and he'll definitely need it as he's going against the undefeated Ilia Topuria. Topuria has the exact same fight style as Volk, takes some time to read his opponents, and has no problem fighting in any facet of the game. The only thing with Topuria is he contains a power in his hands that is unlike any other fighter Volk's faced. One good clean shot from Topuria, and it's lights out. In his last fight against Josh Emmett, we saw levels in this game when it came to the power punchers. Emmett has power, but Topuria has power mixed with skill, making it a walk in the park for Ilia. As for how this fight plays out, I may cause some controversy here. I think Topuria wins by knockout, and the reason why I say this is how Volk is going to be after his last fight. At this point, Volk is 35 years old and just got knocked out less than 4 months ago. The last 35-year-old that got knocked out by a head kick was Kamaru Usman, and he's on a 3-fight skid now. I doubted Volk against Holloway, against Islam, against Yair, and sadly I'm doubting him again this weekend. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. All that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.